Well, of course, the NDP does have a very, very strong environmental policy, and we support the pricing of carbon. You know, the reports that the Suzuki Foundation has put out recommend alternatives, and we welcome the discussion. One of the approaches that was recommended by his foundation was what's called cap and trade, which involves putting a strict limit on the big polluters and then making them pay for the pollution that they produce. All of that money then, in our plan, would go towards the solutions that would help people be part of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Things like helping weatherize homes right across the country, creating thousands and thousands of jobs for Canadians and reducing their bills and greenhouse gas emissions at the same time. A plan for green cars to be produced here. More money for transit, which of course the NDP has already successfully pushed for. As well as renewable energy sources to replace these terrible polluting sources that we get from coal and the tar sands.
Yeah, the problem is with the cap and trade, environmentalists have argued that you can do both. You can do a carbon tax scheme and you can also do a cap and trade system. They complement each other. So why not a carbon tax?
Well, I'm not so sure that they complement each other necessarily. The cap and trade moves much more quickly. I've heard some people suggest that it's a slow process. Those were the people who were in government for a long period and didn't act. The fact is that these programs exist in Europe. In fact, when I was vice chair of Toronto Hydro, we actually began voluntarily being involved in these kind of exchanges to get the market started, and many of those exchanges are happening already. So if we want to move greenhouse gas emissions down the fastest, we make the biggest polluters pay the most, and we move all that money into the solutions. That's, in our view, the best way to go. We welcome the debate.
The Sierra Club's Stephen Hazel has said that it's taken Europe decades to get a cap and trade system right. A carbon tax would deliver results immediately. Again, what about a carbon tax?
Well, I think, first of all, it's interesting to see what's happened in Europe. They have been refining this system for some time, and as a result, they're meeting their Kyoto targets. Had we moved on those kinds of issues when we signed Kyoto, we could have been there as well. When the NDP put forward our comprehensive plan 4 years ago that included cap and trade, that was signed on, all the environmental groups said it was the best. The Sierra Club at the time said it was the best program available, and it's the same program we're advocating now. We could have achieved our Kyoto targets if those strategies had been put in place. Now, of course, we've fallen badly behind. But we think that Canadians want to be involved in the solutions here, and they don't think that the big oil and gas companies, who are some of the ones supporting this carbon tax idea, by the way, whereas the cap and trade is supported by people like Barack Obama, even Senator McCain. So it means it's going to be happening in North America. We should be a part of that solution. We should be leading, in fact.
It's interesting that you mentioned the big oil companies and the executives who are in favor of a carbon tax. That's exactly the stance that the Harper Tories have taken. And so you're on the same wavelength and the same position as the Harper Tories. Are you comfortable with that?
We're not. We're on the opposite end. Mr. Harper has his head stuck in the tar sands. He's shoveling subsidies into Imperial Oil that is scoring the highest corporate profits ever at the same time as they gouge people at the pump. And he's also going to fast-track one of the largest tar sands projects. It's on his desk right now. It's called the Curl Project, and he's going to sign off before the end of the first week in June to add more tar sands capacity. This is completely wrong. That project should not be approved and fast-tracked. The NDP is on the opposite end of the spectrum from Mr. Harper.
Now, this is a very interesting debate, and it's a very interesting issue. It seems to be splitting the left. Do you agree with that?
Oh, no, I think what's happening here is there are various people bringing forward ideas about how we can put a price on carbon. And we welcome that discussion. It's a good discussion. And I encourage people to engage in it. We've sided with the strict cap on big polluters and forcing them to pay, moving all the money through a full auction of the credits into the solutions. It's the system that's working the best and producing the best results. It's where the Americans are going to go under the leadership of whether it's Obama, who's been very clear on it, or even Senator McCain, should he end up in the White House. So let's be part of that. It's the strategy that's been adopted by Gary Dewar in Manitoba, and it's winning converts the more people think about it, and we welcome the debate. We welcome the debate amongst our friends. Let's get it right.
How does it feel, Mr. Layton, to be publicly denounced by the environmentalists? Usually you're on the same page and you're their star. You're the poster boy for the environmentalists.
Well, for example, when we came forward with a concern about biofuels and the way in which that was unfolding, it was actually the NDP that stepped out on that one, and then we had discussions, and more people have come to agree. I think this kind of respectful debate is good, and in fact, the plan that the NDP has advanced was welcomed and celebrated by environmentalists, as is my bill, which will be voted on in 2 weeks in the House on third reading, which would take Canadian emission targets down to 80% below in 2050. This is the target that was established by Global Science right out of the David Suzuki handbook, and we're going to stay on that track and try to deliver those results. I think that's what Canadians want, and let's have a good, respectful debate about how to get there.